Hi, I'm Chef Randall, inventor of the turbo cooker and the steam frying system. Today we're going to show you how to use your new Turbo Cooker Plus. And here to do that is America's favorite cook, Kathy Mitchell.
Well, thank you, Chef Randall.
Kathy, you're welcome. This is your kitchen. I'm going to let you get to it.
Okay. Well, if you're watching this video, it means you're the proud owner of a brand new Turbo Cooker Plus. So let me show you what you got in the package. First of all, you got 35 great turbo cooker recipes, and these will take you through breakfast, lunch, and dinner and get you turbo cooking in no time. Now, you'll find on these recipes all the ingredients you need. So let's take a look at that turbo cooker valve and see what we're talking about. On the top of your lid, you're going to find this valve. It looks like a little light switch, and one's marked open and one's marked closed. Now, I mentioned that all of the recipes use timing, and one of the pluses on the Turbo Cooker Plus is this great timer. What you're going to use this for is if the recipe says you need 3 minutes before you turn the food over, all you have to do to set your minutes is 1, 2, 3 on the minute set, and when you hit start, you've got 3 minutes. Now remember, you're always going to want to take off the timer before you wash that lid or put it in the dishwasher. Now inside, you're going to find these two racks. These we call stack racks because they have little clips that allow you to lock them together so that it makes them easier to move the foods in and out of your turbo cooker. Now, all of the recipes will tell you whether you've got foods on one rack or both racks, and when you lock them together just as easily as that, then you can lift them up and move them in and out. And we're going to show you a lot more about that later. Now, inside the turbo cooker, you'll find a great DuPont non-stick surface, and the only thing you need to remember is you won't use metal utensils in here. You can use your wooden spoons, your plastic spoons, or any of your great nylon utensils. And as a matter of fact, we have a great set of nylon utensils that are specially designed for use with the turbo cooker, and you might want to pick up a set of those for yourself. Now, a lot of your recipes are going to call for using different pots and pans and things from your kitchen to use in addition to your turbo cooker. And you can use metal, like your metal mixing bowls, or glass. I particularly like these little disposable aluminum or metal pie pans and cake pans because then I can just toss them when I'm done. You can use ceramics. You'll also find it handy to have a 6-cup muffin pan like this. A lot of the recipes use this when you're baking cupcakes or muffins in your turbo cooker. Now inside the pan, you got this great springform pan. If you've never seen a springform pan before, let me show you quickly how to use it. On the side, you'll find a little clip, and all you do is flip that open, and this ring lifts right away, so your food is left sitting on there. It makes it easy to get foods out of it. To put it back together, all you do is set it on a flat surface and lock that back on, and that locks your base right back in it. Now, before we start cooking, let me show you a little test you can do to determine how your stove compares to the stoves we used to develop the turbo cooker recipes. Take 1 cup of water, just cold from the tap, and put it into a cold turbo cooker. Set your stove to high heat, and using the count up feature of your timer, see how long it takes that water to come to a boil. If it takes 2.5 minutes, your stove is exactly the same as our stoves, and you can follow the timings exactly as they are on the recipes. If it takes 3 minutes, then you know immediately you're going to need to add a little extra time to the recipes in order for them to get done on your stove. On the other hand, if your stove boils water in 2 minutes, then you're going to need to find what setting to put your stove on so that it takes 2.5 minutes for the water to come to the boil. It might be medium or medium high. But once you've determined that, it'll make it much easier for you to use those turbo cooker recipes. Okay, I'm going to clear off this stuff and we'll get started cooking. Okay, we're going to start with one of my favorite recipes from the show, pork tenderloins with sweet potatoes, green beans, and baked apples. So what I'm going to do first, I've got some sweet potatoes here. I'm just going to put them in the pan. And I'm going to add 1 cup of water. Now, this is a recipe that you don't have a card for. This is one of the recipes that I've used the quick cooking guide to help me figure out how to do it. Potatoes are going to take about 21 minutes. So the meat only takes 14, means I need to give those potatoes a 7-minute head start. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that on to high heat. And I'm going to go ahead and put the apples in. Now, all I've done for these apples is I cut them in half, cut a little slice off the bottom too so they sit flat on the rack, and filled them with dried cranberries. They're just delicious and they go really good with the pork. So we're going to go ahead and put the lid on there, the valve in the closed position, and we're going to start that off with 7 minutes. Now let's go ahead and get the rest of the stuff ready so when the timer goes, we're ready to add it. I've got some pork tenderloin here, and I'm going to use a little seasoning in it. Now, a lot of times in the recipes, you'll see a reference to Chef Randall's Choices. What these are is great single-serving seasoning packets that allow you to season your meats just perfectly without having to go out and buy lots of different spices. Chef Randall has mixed all the spices perfectly, and there's lots of different flavors. There's a taste of Italy and so on. What I'm using in this pork tenderloin is the vegetable and poultry seasoning, but remember, you can use it on anything. It's great on the pork. So I'm just going to go ahead and stir that around and let it kind of marinate for a few minutes while those potatoes start cooking. Now on this rack, I've got my frozen green beans with some almonds, seasoned with a little salt and pepper. In the cooking guide, 12 minutes, and the meat needs 14 minutes. But you know, this isn't rocket science, and you know that they're going to both cook in about the same amount of time that way. So those will go in just a few minutes. While that's getting started, let's show you that coffee cake I promised you over here. Okay, I've got 2 cups of reduced fat Bisquick in the bowl, and now I'm going to add for liquid 1 cup of orange soda. And I'm using diet orange soda, so it's not going to add any extra calories to that coffee cake. You know, you're going to find when you use soda in your baking, it really makes your baked goods high and light. We're going to add an egg and give that a little bit of a stir here. All right, so you don't want to over-stir Bisquick, you just want to get those lumps out. And I've prepared my springform pan with a little bit of nonstick spray so that this doesn't stick to it. There we go, we got a nice smooth batter. And we're just going to go ahead and put it right into that pan. So just spread that in the bottom. And I've got some pecans. Sprinkle those on there. I love pecans. And a little bit of brown sugar. Just right on the top. Okay. Now, for my cooking medium, I'm going to use the rest of that can of soda. So we're just going to go ahead and pour it right into the bottom of the pan. And we're going to make a little hot fruit sauce. So what I've got here are some peaches that I've drained most of the liquid out of, and some mandarin oranges. And to help that kind of thicken up, I'm going to add just a little brown sugar that's left over right into there. Now we'll place the rack right on there, set the cake on top, and that's going to take about 15 minutes to bake on high heat with the valve open. That open will help that liquid to boil away to make my sauce nice and thick, and it also kind of helps the cake to rise. Oh, now one thing I wanted to mention while we're talking about baked goods. A lot of times when you're baking, like the cheesecake recipe, for instance, through the baking, it'll tell you to add more water to the pan to keep the steam going. So anytime you're asked to add more water, just remember to add it to the pan, not to the cake, because one lady did that and wondered why her cake was very, very moist. All right, 15 minutes on that. And we should just about be ready here on our sweet potatoes. I'm going to go ahead and stop it. Okay, now take a look. See, the apples are starting to get tender, but they've still got another 15 minutes to go. I'm going to go ahead and lift the rack out. You notice how I'm doing this? I've got a little kitchen fork, and it just slips right under those wire racks and lifts it right out. And I can see the potatoes are getting tender, but they're not quite done yet. Now, I probably have a little bit more water in there than I would like to have, but that's going to continue to boil away. So we're going to go ahead and add the meat to it right now. So I've got my pork tenderloin here, those seasonings on it. I'm going to go ahead and put that right in the center here. Push those potatoes off to the side. And I'm going to add just a little bit of brown sugar on top of those potatoes. They give it such a nice flavor. And I find that when I add the brown sugar, I don't have to add any butter. And when you can eat potatoes without butter, saves you a lot of calories. Okay, now because I have a little bit more liquid than I'd like to have, I'm going to use the valve open for the first few minutes of cooking here. So I'm going to put my green beans on, and we'll put those apples back on. I'm going to go ahead and lock those racks together, just like this. Give it a little spin. Put the lid on. Now I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to leave the valve open for a few minutes to kind of see if we can't get rid of some of that liquid. I don't want to boil the meat, you want to fry the meat. And we're going to go ahead and give that 7 minutes. And then I'm going to turn it over, and then we'll cook it for the last 7 minutes. Okay, so while we wait for that to cook, we'll take a little break here. Okay, there's the timer on our pork. Let's see how we're doing here. I kept my eye on it while it was cooking, and there was plenty of liquid in there, so I didn't add any more. If I'd found that the liquid was getting low, I would have closed the valve. Now we're going to just go ahead and lift off those apples and those green beans, and you're going to love the way these racks lock together. It makes it so much easier to move them around. Now here's our pork, and I'm just going to go ahead and flip it over. Look at the beautiful brownness we're getting on there. And remember, there's no oil in there, so you're cooking without any fats or oils. Those potatoes are just about done. This is going to be perfect. 7 minutes is going to be just perfect for this. I'm going to go ahead and put the racks back on now. And we'll give it that last 7 minutes, and then we'll be ready for dinner. Okay, the coffee cake is done. I'm going to turn that off and shut off the power there. And this guy's like 30 seconds. Let's go ahead and shut it off. All right, take a look. I'm going to test those apples. Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the apples off first. I'm just going to set those out of the way. Those are for dessert. There's our green beans. There's a little fork hole right in the side of that rack. Allows you to slip your fork in and get it off. And here's our sweet potatoes and our pork tenderloin. And if you can see, it's just perfect. There's just a little bit of a light glaze left in there. So let's slice into that tenderloin and see how we did. Oh, look at the color on that. Now this will feed a family of 3, 4, 2 at my house maybe. Oh, look at that tenderloin. Isn't that beautiful and juicy? Just the slightest hint of pink, which is okay on pork now. Oh, that looks so good. And some sweet potato. It's got such a beautiful thick glaze on it. Look at those. And some green beans. I love the way the vegetables come out cooked in here. Keep their color. And I suppose we could add an apple to that. There's our dinner. What do you think? Let's check that coffee cake. Ah, look at that. That rose up just beautiful. I'm going to go ahead and set that right on a plate. And then you'll see when we take off the springform pan, it's a little warm. See how easily that removes? And I'm going to go ahead and cut that. You'd normally want to let it sit for just a couple of minutes to kind of solidify. Sometimes you just don't have a couple of minutes. You're hungry now. Oh yeah, see the beautiful orange color? And I've said I've done this with strawberry soda too. It's really good. And that cooked in just 15 minutes with no watching. It's just a great fast breakfast if you like sweet stuff for breakfast. You can add a little bit of that hot fruit glaze to it. Your family's going to love this. Okay, I've got a couple of chicken dishes I want to show you. We're going to start with one I made on the show. We call it Bavarian chicken. Now what I've got in the pan right now is a little bit of cabbage, and I'm sauteing it in just a little bit of water. I never use oil in any of my recipes, and you won't miss it, believe me. So after your cabbage is sauteed, what I'm going to make is one of these packaged noodle mixes. And the recipe, follow it just like it calls for it. Package of the mix and 2 cups of water. The only thing I'm going to leave out is that tablespoon of butter or margarine. You really don't need it. So we're going to go ahead and add that in. Now, I've added the cabbage as my own little special touch because I feel like if you can get vegetables in your kids any way possible, go for it. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and start this. It calls for 7 minutes of cooking time. So I'm going to get it started in the turbo cooker, and then I'm going to transfer it to this other pan and let it continue cooking while I fry my chicken in the bottom. That way I've got my meat, my vegetable, my side dish all in one pan, so I'm only dirtying one pan up. So here's how you do the chicken. I've got just a chicken breast here, and what you want to do is take, if you've got a hammer, works great. If you don't, the side of a saucer works fine. What you want to do is flatten it out a little bit, just like this. And once you get it flattened out, just do both sides, just like so. This will cook faster. Going to drip it in a little bit of flour. Now what I've got here, this is the Bavarian part. I've got a little bit of beaten egg with a couple of tablespoons of mustard. So we've dipped the chicken in flour. Now we're going to dredge it in that egg mix. And then what I've got in here are some crushed up pretzels. This is a good way to use up the last of the bag when all that's left is crumbs. So we're going to go ahead and roll that chicken in there. And what this is going to do is going to give me a beautiful crispy texture on that chicken without frying. And it looks good even before you hardly start cooking it. So I've gone ahead and dipped those. Now let me give this a little bit of a stir here. Actually, I'm going to give it just a couple more seconds. What I've got over here, if we can just move over here for a second, is I've got some chicken and onions sauteing in the pan. And it's gone dry, but that's good, because what happens when your pan dries out a little bit is, you see, that's where you get the beautiful brownness in your chicken and your onions without adding any oil. So I was keeping an eye on it, and I could hear that sizzle telling me that I was losing my moisture, so I just added a little bit more water. I keep saying, and people joke with me that cooking is not rocket science, and it really isn't. But you just got to kind of watch it, and don't think you've burned it. We've got a beautiful brownness. So I'm going to go ahead and let that go a couple more seconds, and this looks like it's just about ready to transfer into this other container. And this is going to finish cooking while we cook that chicken. So we're going to go ahead and just pour it right out into the bowl. And here you see I'm using the bowl I'm going to serve it in, so I'm not dirtying up any extra dishes. And this is where you'll find those spatulas that we sell come in really handy. They've got little points on them that help you get in all the little corners. Now, rather than stop and wash that pan, I'm just going to go ahead and take a little paper towel. We can add just a little bit of liquid to it to kind of swish out any residue that's in there. And while I'm doing this, this is a good chance for me to talk about one of my favorite little helpful hints. A lot of the recipes call for browning ground beef and draining off the fat. And I'll tell you, the easiest way to get the fat off of ground beef is, after it's browned up, just drop a little paper towel in there, push it around with a spatula, and that paper towel will soak up all that excess grease, so you don't have to transfer it into a colander to get rid of that extra fat. All right, now we're just going to go ahead and put our chicken breasts in there. And the pan's on a high heat. And I'm going to drop those right in the pan. Now, because we're frying with water and not oil, I'm going to go ahead and add my water right now. But I'll tell you a little secret here. You don't want to just dump it into the middle of the chicken. You want to kind of drizzle it around the edges for a couple of reasons. You're not rinsing off any of that excess, any of that breading. Just keeps it right around the sides. Now, you don't want to put all of your water in at the same time. Over the course of cooking, this is going to use probably close to 3/4 of a cup of water to fry. But if I add it just a little at a time, it doesn't get the chicken like it's boiling. It gives me that fried texture. So that's going to keep my steam going. On my rack here, I've got some carrots. I've got the stack rack on there, and I'm going to add our side dish. Cover that up. And I'm going to add a little bit more water in 3 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and give this just 3 minutes to start. And then I'm just going to come back. I don't have to lift out the rack. I'll just take off the lid and add a little water around the edges. But 3 minutes at a time, that'll keep that breading nice and crisp. Now we'll get back over here to our chicken. I guess I didn't tell you what I was making over here. I'm making chicken and dumplings. So what I've done is I've sauteed the onions and the chicken. And can you see the beautiful brownness I've got without a drop of oil? You know, so many of us that cook think you have to have oil all the time to get your food brown, and you really don't. You can get a beautiful brownness using just water, but let the pan dry out just a little bit, then that caramelizing can begin. Okay, so now what I'm going to add to that is 2 cans of reduced fat cream of chicken soup that I've whisked up with a little bit of hot water, enough hot water to give me 4 cups total. And I use hot water because that'll bring this to the boil just a little bit faster. And I'm going to add my veggies. I don't know, Grandma said chicken and dumplings, you need peas and carrots, so I'm going to just go ahead and toss in some peas and carrots. And just let that come up to a boil while I mix up my dumplings. Now the dumplings are easy. You just follow the recipe on the box. I'm using reduced fat Bisquick. I've got about 1 2/3 cups, I think, of biscuit mix in here, and 2/3 of a cup of skim milk. And we're just going to go ahead and stir that up. Don't overmix them. Dumplings should be a little bit lumpy. And then we'll just add those. Okay, that's ready to go. Let's go ahead and, pardon me for licking my fingers. I'm going to add my water back to this. I said I'm going to need a couple more tablespoons of water in there. You don't have to lift off the racks. Just kind of pour it right in around the edges, just like that. You can hear that sizzle going on in there. That'll keep the steam going, because the steam is what's steaming those carrots and cooking my noodles on the top. And I'm pouring it just in around the edges so that it's not going to rinse any of the breading off those pork chops. Now I'm going to go ahead and give that another 3 minutes. So here I can see what's going on here. Okay, and in case I didn't mention it, we're cooking here with the valve closed. Now let's check that gravy for our chicken and dumplings here. Oh yeah, we've got a little boil going on there. So now we're going to go ahead and give that a stir and drop in our dumplings. Now the little trick is, if you dip your spoon into that hot gravy, it'll make it easier for that dumpling mix to fall right off into the pan. So we're going to go ahead and just drop those in by spoonfuls around there. I think a lot of people have stopped making chicken and dumplings because it's a lot of work. But this is so fast and so easy. We joked in the show about the turbo cooker making Bisquick quicker, and it is. This chicken and dumplings from this point on is going to cook in only about 8 more minutes. So it's not something you have to cook all day on a Sunday afternoon. This could be an after work dinner, no problem at all. And you know, the turbo cooker recipes are so easy and so forgiving that you can get your husband involved in the cooking, or your kids will help out too in the kitchen. It really makes it easier on you, especially if you're a working mom. Okay, I'm going to put the lid on there, and those just need 8 minutes with the valve closed on high heat. Now I think we're time to turn over those chicken pieces. So let me grab my hot pads here, and I'm going to lift them out. Again, these racks locking together makes it so much easier to get them in and out of the pan. And now we're going to go ahead and turn over our chicken. Use that spatula to kind of slide in underneath and try to keep that breading from lifting off your chicken. Oh, I wish you could smell these. That mustard makes them so good. Now see, that's a do as I say, not as I do. Take your time so that you don't disturb that breading, and see how beautiful and brown those are getting. Now I'm going to go ahead and add a couple more tablespoons of water, again, right around the edges. So you keep that steam going, because remember, we're steaming those vegetables on the top. So just keep that water right around the edges. About 3 tablespoons there. And again, those are going to need about 6 more minutes total, but I'm going to stop it after 3 and put in just a little more water to keep the steam going. My timer's yelling at me. One nice thing about this timer too, if you've used it for 3 minutes, all you have to do to get the next 3 minutes is hit the start button again, and it's still set on 3. Okay, we'll come back and check that in about 6 minutes and see how they are. Okay, there's the beep. We're done here. Let's take a look at what we've got. All right, here's our side dish, our noodles and our sauce. Those are ready. Our carrots, oh, beautifully steamed. Look at the color. You're just going to love the way the vegetables come out when you turbo steam them. They're just gorgeous. And here's our chicken. So all you got to do is serve that up. Said, be careful when you go underneath there. You see we've got a beautiful crispy coating on there. And we can serve that up with some carrots. Your kids will eat more vegetables when you cook them in here. Now what did this take? About less than 15 minutes. And I've got noodles and carrots and Bavarian style fried chicken. Less than 15 minutes. That's a great dinner. Now let's take a look at those chicken and dumplings. Oh, yum. All right, now as usual, I forgot to sprinkle on the paprika. Normally when you put the dumplings in, if you sprinkle them with a little bit of paprika, it gives them a brownness that you're not going to get. Look how good that looks. And again, I like to check them to be sure they're done. Don't just go by what the recipe says. If it says 8 minutes, cook it for 8 minutes and then check before you pull it out. You can see those are beautiful and fluffy inside. Those are perfectly done in just 8 minutes. And all we need to do is serve them up. Got a spoon right here. Oh, this is such a good meal. My family loves this. And again, you can change it to suit your family. If you want bigger pieces of chicken, leave the pieces bigger. Just give it a little extra time, a little gravy on that dumpling. I think we're ready to eat. Let me show you something over here. What I've got in the turbo cooker is some wild rice mix. Now, according to the package directions, this takes about 25 minutes to cook, and this has been in here about 10 minutes, so it's not totally done yet. So for the last 15 minutes of the cooking, I'm going to go ahead and make the rest of my meal. So what I've got on this rack is some fish. This is a piece of cod and some shrimp. Put a little bit of lemon on top, a little rosemary, whatever you like on your shrimp, and that's going to steam while the rice finishes cooking. Oh, wait, I forgot my asparagus. This is going to steam too, right on top of there. You don't always have to have vegetables on the rack. So I've got some asparagus right on top of there. Now we'll put the fish on top. And on top of that, I'm going to cook dessert. Now, watch what I've got here. This is a little chocolate Jiffy cake mix, and I mixed up, these are single layer mixes, so I mixed up the first layer and put it in a pan. And I've got the yellow cake mix mixed up right here. Now, I want to make you something special, and for this I'm using one of Chef Randall's essences or baking flavors. This is praline. These are wonderful flavors. You use them to flavor ice creams or cupcakes or muffins or cake mixes. And by putting this in here, I can turn this ordinary yellow cake into a praline flavor, if I don't spread it all over myself. So we're just going to give that a stir. And I'm going to marble it right on top of this chocolate cake. Now, one of the things you are going to love about baking in your turbo cooker is that you can use inexpensive mixes like this, and they come out so moist because they're baked with steam. So let's talk for just a second about what you can expect when you bake in your turbo cooker. You're not going to bake pie. You're not going to bake a raw dough because it doesn't brown. It just bakes. But as you saw earlier with the Bisquick, it does wonderful dumplings, and it bakes wonderful cakes and muffins and cupcakes. So we're going to go ahead and just put that yellow on top, and I'm going to marble that in. At your house, you can take a little more time to make this really special and beautiful. I'm trying to hurry here so we can get lots of stuff done for you. But what I've got now is what I'll call a marble praline brownie. And I know you might think I'm cheating calling this brownies, but I'll tell you what. Baked in the turbo cooker, this ordinary cake mix is going to taste as moist and chewy as the best brownies. And one more thing you might say, she's cooking those on top of fish. I'm doing this to prove to you that even with something as strong flavored as fish, there is no flavor exchange when you bake in the turbo cooker with the valve closed. So I'm going to close the valve, and in 15 minutes, think about it, I'm going to have rice, steamed asparagus, fish, shrimp, and dessert, my brownies, all in one pan without heating up the oven or having lots of extra pots and pans. Okay, now let's check our cake. All right. Looks pretty good. I should have a toothpick, but I don't. That's not quite done in the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and give that cake just a couple of minutes more. But I want to show you the rest of the food here because there's our fish and our shrimp. And you can tell that shrimp is done because it's turned that beautiful color. I think I have a clean fork over here. And that fish is beautiful and flaky. Doesn't that look great? And let's check our rice right underneath. Well, there's our asparagus. And see, that rice has just about absorbed the last of its water. That rice couldn't hurt to maybe go for another minute or two anyway. So let's go ahead. The fish is done, but I'm going to go ahead and leave it on there. That's one of the things you're going to love about cooking on the turbo cooker is it is so forgiving. You can always take an extra minute or two. It's not like something that's on with no moisture in it or in an oven. It's never going to burn. So I'm going to go ahead and give that cake just a couple more minutes. I think that'll get it done. So let's zero it out. 2 more.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, there's that timer. Let's see how we did. I have faith. I'm turning off the fire. And I have a toothpick this time. I think he's done. My children say I have asbestos fingers, and I do. You're going to use hot pads. Okay, I'm going to take that rack off. And look at that fish and the shrimp. We know that was already done, but you see, it didn't hurt it to leave it in there for just a few more minutes. And lift that off of there. And here's our rice and our asparagus. I'm going to go ahead and pull just a little bit of that out of there. Ooh, yum. And we'll get some of that rice. A little bit of fish. Oh, it's flaky and beautiful. And some shrimp. Aha, that's a meal fit for a king.
Kathy, thank you so very much for showing people how to use the new Turbo Cooker Plus. But tell me, why didn't you wear the apron I made for you?
You know, I always forget about my apron until I've already got spots on my clothes, and this is a great apron. One of the reasons I love it is because it's adjustable. All you do is pull on the straps, and you can adjust it for any size.
Let me help you try and tie that up.
And another thing I love is that there's a place for my oven mitt, without even looking, and a place for my kitchen towels, so I'm not spending all my time looking for them. You know, I think part of what makes me a great cook is that I have the right tools for the job, and you already have a great start with your Turbo Cooker Plus. Now we've made available to you a lot of the tools that you've seen me using today. Randall, why don't you show them a few of them?
Sure. You saw Kathy using our new spices, and the whole concept behind them is that by using just one package of spice, you can turn out a whole meal. We've created a cookbook that comes with it that tells you how to take any one of the various tastes and turn it into an entire meal. As well, you saw us using the baking flavors. And the same thing, we've created a whole bunch of baking flavors that you can turn into making ice cream, sherbet, sundaes. You can make cakes, cookies, candies, and you've got the cookbook that shows you exactly how to do it. We've designed for you a whole bunch of new spatulas and utensils, and the whole idea behind them is we've created a whole bunch of different angled areas that allow you to get into every single nook and cranny of your pots and pans. You've got your chef-style mixing bowls, which are perfect for baking, perfect for preparing food. Don't forget our Turbo Junior. Everybody's going to love the new Turbo Cooker Junior. We've got our professional baking pans, our assortment of measuring cups and measuring spoons, high-quality stainless steel. You'll have them for a lifetime. And we've got our professional-style whisks. Not to mention the hundreds of different items that we have in the catalog that you're going to get in your Turbo Cooker box. And you can also check out the Turbo Cooker website or chefrandall.com, where all these items and both Kathy and I are, so that you can chat with us and take a look at some of the other products we have to offer. I want to thank you for inviting us into your kitchen today.
And thank you for becoming a member of the Turbo Cooker family.
Kathy,